Okay, this is the last section on how to ride a bike. What else do we need to know? We need to know how to trail brake. More generally, I want you to feel good about using your front brake in a turn, and so we'll talk about how to do this. This is never taught as a beginner technique, but you never have full control of your bike until you know how to do it. A word of caution, it takes much less front brake than you think. Remember, smooth on, smooth off. First, let's ask, what can we learn from racing? The answer is a lot. When a racer gets to his braking point approaching a turn, he has taken himself very near to his limit. He is going to have to brake and turn very hard in order to stay on the track. Generally, this is not what you will be doing. You may have no interest in racing. By comparison, you will be going slow. You will give yourself a huge margin for error. But surprises happen. There will be times when you need to avoid something that you didn't plan on, and you'll need to execute a slower, sharper turn in a limited space. Your margin for error may be gone. What you need to do might be exactly what the racer does. This is actually very likely. Here is a common example. You are going around a corner and you notice an obstruction in the middle of your lane, something you can't run over. No matter where you make your turn, it will have to be sharper than you planned on. All of a sudden, your speed is now too high. Your choices might be to slow down, tighten your corner, and go to the inside of the obstacle, or straighten up, go around it to the outside, but then slow down and make a tighter corner in what little road there's left. This is a single vehicle accident about to happen. People crash all the time in this situation. A racer or a good rider would handle this with ease. That needs to be you. So how does a racer turn? There is one school of thought that says that you do all of your braking before you get to the corner, and then you accelerate gradually through the turn. On the street, you will do this almost all of the time. This is proper practice. If it doesn't work for you, you are going too fast for the street. But this technique does not prepare you for making changes while you are in a turn. This is not what you need in an emergency. Most racers do not do this, ever. They trail brake in every turn. Before I describe trail braking, I want to give credit to Keith Code for his concept called the traction pie. The size of the pie reflects how much traction you have. The more weight on the front tire, the bigger the pie is. You can use it all for braking, or you can use it all for turning, or you can slice it up and use some of it for braking and some for turning. Just don't use it all up. And for sure, don't try to take that last bite after it's all gone. Keeping some in reserve is good. What I'm going to say now is based on an article that Kenny Roberts wrote years ago. He was 3-time world champion. I know that Freddie Spencer agrees. He was also a 3-time world champion. I know that Nick Einach, lead instructor at the Yamaha Champions School, agrees. This is what they teach. They use the front brake hard leading up to the corner. As they lean the bike into the corner, they back off the front brake gradually. As more cornering force is needed, they make sure that the braking is sufficiently reduced. They use up most of the pie most of the time, but you don't have to. In a typical turn, they will brake all the way to the apex of the turn, gradually releasing the brake the whole time. Anywhere near the apex, the front brake pressure will be very, very light. They will ease back on the throttle almost immediately after the front brake is released. As the throttle is rolled on, they will be standing the bike up and widening the turn. You might make a note of that. Never be on the gas if you aren't planning on widening the turn. In analyzing this technique, Kenny Roberts pointed out several of its most important features. The turn is sharper than it needs to be. The idea is to go in slow and come out fast. It uses all of the track on the exit, but this is caused by acceleration. Acceleration is a choice. If something goes wrong in the turn, the simple decision to not accelerate gives you flexibility. As you are braking and leaning into the corner, you can change your line. Only one line is fastest, but you have choices that might keep you from hitting other bikes or help you make a pass. You can brake a little longer and exit low, or you can stand it up, keep your speed, brake later, and exit high. To use Kenny's words, you are not on the edge all of the time. You have margin for error. This should sound good to you. Using the front brake in a turn is what makes this possible. We are not racers, but we need to move our bikes around in corners too. The biggest difference is that we will keep a much larger percentage of our traction pie in reserve. Do you need more motivation? As I said before, your most important emergency evasive maneuver is braking. Accelerating should be a rare event. So what else is there? The answer is brake then swerve, or swerve then brake. These are not normally taught in conjunction with trail braking because, frankly, it can be risky for beginners, and most instructors are still trying to make sure that countersteering is well in hand. So if you don't learn this first, that's fine. But without braking, a lot of your traction pie will go unused throughout most of these maneuvers. You could be using it to slow down and tighten your line, either of which might save your life. So if you are not taught this at first, be sure to work on it later. So what does trail braking feel like in practice? First, you roll off the throttle, you apply the front brake smoothly, and then ease off the brake as you turn in. Brake lightly while you are learning this. Leave a lot of the traction pie unused. Need to tighten the turn? Brake a little harder. If you were not using the brakes in the first place, applying them smoothly and lightly while you are in the corner will tighten your turn. You've heard that using the front brake in a corner will stand you up and run you wide? Exactly the opposite of what I said? Well, this won't happen to you because you know how to steer. You know how to control your lean angle. It is true that increasing your braking in the front will compress the forks. That will make the angle of the fork steeper, and this will tighten the steering, and the bike will want to turn in and stand up. So don't let it. Steer away from the corner to keep it down. Do this simultaneously with braking. You know it's going to happen, so compensate. If you steer to preserve your lean angle, the slower speed will cause a tighter turn, not a wider turn. Don't argue, that's physics. On the other hand, if you need to brake hard, then let this work for you. Let the bike stand up so you have more of the pie available for braking. Brake harder and then trail off the brakes to make a tighter turn later. Your front brake gives you multiple options in a corner. Beware, we are talking about minor pressure on the brake lever, 2 fingers and a very light squeeze. Smooth on and smooth off. Keep the weight transfers gentle and save some pie for later. And don't forget to steer. So how do you learn this? Reading can help. The best book on this subject that I have seen is Sport Riding Techniques, but don't limit yourself to only one. But far and away, my number one recommendation is to take track classes. No matter what kind of riding you like to do, track classes are the best way to learn how to control your bike. On the street, this is hard to learn and hard to practice. On a track, every single corner will be a learning experience. Without good instruction, repeating your mistakes will take you down a very bad road. A few days of track classes will provide you with a lifetime of things to practice. As Nike says, just do it. There will be track classes near you. Ride as a passenger with the instructors and watch what they do. Track classes will make you a better rider. That's what we all need to be. Okay, those are the 4 things you need to know about how to ride a motorcycle well. The key words are steer, counter steer, brake, and trail brake. Getting good at these things doesn't happen overnight. It'll take more than a 1-hour lecture. Do some reading. Take as many classes as you can. I've had 10 days of track classes plus more track days of practice. I'm still not fast, and I have no intention of trying to be fast. But what I learned made my motorcycling much more enjoyable. My biggest regret is that I didn't do track classes sooner. Please don't make that mistake. Congratulations, you have finished part 1 of my 3-part series. Part 2 is next, covering the next most important thing to learn. You've heard of it, defensive driving. See you there.